Welcome everybody to the Advantage Thinking webinar. I'd just like to recognise that this is part of Local Development Week with the Irish Local Development Network, which is the umbrella body for local development companies across the country. And we're really highlighting the work of local development companies. I'm delighted today to be joined by the panel, and I'll go through them and introduce them in a minute. But just to give you a little bit of the format for the day, we're going to be discussing what advantage thinking is, hearing from the presenters, and I'd encourage you to put some questions into the chat. So there's a chat function and we'll be monitoring the questions as they come up, and we'll get to them at the end. So as part of Local Development Week, we're delighted to kick off the webinar. So the workshop today will be started after I do a quick intro. Paul Rogers, the CEO of Northside Partnership, will talk about the journey that Northside Partnership have been on towards advantage thinking since 2018. Then Sarah McManus from Dublin Northwest Partnership, where I'm the CEO, which I didn't mention. She'll be talking about one of the projects that we've overlaid with an advantage thinking approach. Then we'll have Gwen Harris, who's the Regional Manager of North Dublin MABS, again speaking about their journey towards advantage thinking and how they've implemented it in their work, coming off the work of the Northside Partnership in their area. And then we hope to have somebody from the Foyer Federation, Kate Russell, who'll talk to us about the peak body in the UK that really has established advantage thinking and holds a lot of the resources and expertise and about advantage thinking. So I'll just give you a quick overview of what advantage thinking is. And you'll hear more about it as the speakers through their rich experience. Advantage thinking, as we said, was established by the Foyer Federation in the UK by Colin Falconer at the time, who was the Director of Innovation. So it's a concept that's about 12 years old, but of course it's has its origins in a number of practice approaches and philosophies that you'll all be aware of, like the capabilities approach, Nussbaum and Sen, asset-based community development, Martin Seligman's work in positive psychology. So it's taken all of these influences and really distilled it into a practice approach that's, I suppose, more kind of, what would you say, usable and intelligible on the ground in terms of practice and policy and how we implement that in our day-to-day work. I suppose there's a number of key elements around advantage thinking, but essentially it is looking at balancing the narrative of disadvantage. So we all work in communities where disadvantage is real and structural disadvantage absolutely needs to be challenged. But when we're working at an individual level, there's often this balance that we need to strike between recognizing structural disadvantage, campaigning to change that, but also working at that personal level to enable people's talents, abilities, strengths, and really, trying to disrupt that narrative of disadvantage for the person in front of us who's, working with us in terms of our organisations and the staff, which I'm sure Paul will talk a little bit about in terms of the Northside Partnerships approach. There's a number of domains around advantage thinking. So within advantage thinking, we're really interested in people. So it's how do we surround people with other people who can be mentors, who can inspire, who can, often, people who may not have had a lot of advantage in their lives need to be able to see it and be it. We hear that a lot. If you can't see it, you can't be it. So people who will really inspire people. And we all have that, I suppose, potential within our organizations. We also talk about place. So places where people can go to feel inspired. When people come into our organizations, do they feel like they're being serviced? Often we come in and we're all, conscious of how our places can really inspire people, and bringing people to other places outside the community, like universities, job, employment opportunities, getting into the city. How do we, look at place as a vehicle to disrupt power, but also to provide opportunity, which is the next piece of advantage thinking. We're always trying to put new opportunities in front of people and stretch people, I suppose, to take positive risk. We were also interested in a campaign because, as we know, structural disadvantage is very real. And if you look at the public deprivation indices, where we work often has the highest levels of disadvantage in the country. And advantage thinking absolutely does not deny that, but it looks at how we, I suppose, balance the reality of disadvantage with a practice approach that prioritizes people's advantages and creates some balance within that conversation. There's also 7 tests. So you'll see on our background, we all have one of the tests around advantage thinking. And it's not a test in the sense that we're going to, have an exam, because that wouldn't be very in line with an advantage thinking approach. But it's really a reminder to us around the principles of advantage thinking and how we can, I suppose, check ourselves. And often in our work, we do this, just check ourselves against these 7 tests. So you'll hear more about them as we go through the day, but they are around how we talk about people. So we're all familiar with some registration forms where we have to, in a sense, label people as maybe a disadvantaged woman, or, people are defined by their disadvantage rather than somebody experiencing homeless. We might say a homeless person. So it's a slight nuance in the language, but it's an important nuance in terms of how we talk about people, how we understand people, how we work with people, how we invest in people, how we believe in people, involve people, and that's critical part of advantage thinking, and how we challenge ourselves and others. So, often we hear stereotypes in the media around the people in the places that we work, and it's just how we challenge that, and also challenge policy at a broader level to really recognize that the capabilities of people as well. So that's it from me in terms of an overview. You'll hear a lot more about advantage thinking through the speakers. So I'm going to gladly hand over now to Paul Rogers, the CEO of Northside Partnership, who's going to take us through their journey, which, if I'm right, Paul, started around 2018 in terms of the advantage thinking approach. So thank you.
Thanks, Niamh. Really concise overview of advantage thinking there, which is hard to follow. I'm probably going to speak a little bit about my own personal journey as well, perhaps, which led me to advantage thinking. I'm 24 years working in the sector in community development space. I'm originally from Coolock, but spent most of my initial work in the sector in Finglas, Cabra area, where I had many relatives and got to know that community very, very well. And I suppose when you're working in a community and you're building up those relationships, and we all know how important trust is with people across the community over the years, you see so much potential, but often that potential is struggling to get ahead because the opportunities aren't there, which people would have maybe in perhaps more affluent areas, whatever. And it always struck me that the concept or the describing communities as disadvantaged, it has a relevance up to funders perhaps, but it shouldn't be reflected back down to our communities, because our communities are full of people with potential. But as I said, what often impinges upon their capacity to move ahead in life is opportunities. And I firmly believe, and it has been certainly at the core of my ethos as a practitioner over the years, is that people have unbelievable skills, gifts, talents, and abilities, but often what they lack is an opportunity to express those. And as you grow and you see other communities where people have had those opportunities, they arise, through so many other aspects of life where be that through family, social networks, social capital, all of those things that are available to people in more affluent areas that really help them get ahead. And yet the people that we work with, they often lack those opportunities, but they are incredibly talented. And so my background, I was always interested in asset-based community development, working from a strengths-based approach. And when I first came across advantage thinking and Colin and what was going on in Australia, it resonated with me in a way that it kind of brought home, it's not that people are disadvantaged in their person, they're disadvantaged in their circumstances or whatever, but that isn't the story. And so when I transitioned to the role in Northside Partnership, certainly one of the things that struck me was how do we put that value and that ethos and that belief in people at the heart of what we do as an organization. And for many of you that work in local development companies, you already are in that space, you think that way, but I don't think sometimes we're clear enough in articulating that and holding that view, and presenting that, and certainly presenting that back to the communities we work with, because I know from our own staff here, it's often our own staff are the people that are putting and seeing somebody's potential and elevating that potential and talking to somebody with belief in their potential. So that's just a quick background as to how my own personal journey, which led me to this as a model. And I think what really became important to me was, you know, in an organization like a local development company, we have a lot of different services and supports that have been brought into the organizations over the years. We've lots of different funders that, as Niamh alluded to earlier on, have different forms, different criteria, and yet at the heart of it, they're all about trying to work with people to create opportunities for people and support people attain their, as we say, the good life and you know, the best life that they can attain. And so when you're struggling as an organization to try and hold fast to those values or whatever, with all of those competing demands from funders or whatever, it's good to have perhaps a clear mission, a clear purpose in terms of how we work with people. And certainly advantage thinking in our context in Northside Partnership spoke to that. Many of the staff in the organisation said, but aren't we already doing that? And that's correct. But perhaps we weren't saying that across the organisation and having a common understanding of that. So we began our advantage thinking journey back in 2018. And part of that journey was really clearly articulating the vision, the mission, the values, and the purpose in our strategic plan, and putting advantage thinking at the heart of our new strategic plan, which is coming to an end now. That was a strategic plan which started in 2019. And that allowed us to look at advantage thinking across the entire organisation. You know, staff in the local area employment or local employment services at the time, staff under SICAP, staff in our preparing for a life home visiting program, staff that are working on the TOOS program, doesn't matter. This is how we work with people, and this is how we believe in people, and this is how we invest in people's capabilities. So I think at the heart of this, it was also really, really important to us as an organisation because it supported a fundamental approach that Northside Partnership has, which is an integrated services approach. It doesn't matter which service offering you come through into Northside Partnership, we try and make the entire organisation available to you to support you and to customise our supports to you in your journey, whatever that is. And what is really important is that that journey is common, no matter what service you're coming through in terms of how we work with you. And that's where advantage thinking has been key. It's been critical to us in terms of a core practice approach. So it sets a clear intention as to how we work with people, how we talk about people, how we engage with people, and you will see that from the 7 tests here. And I suppose in short, I often think of advantage thinking as being the flag that symbolises how we go forward in our work. In terms of what we did as an organisation to implement advantage thinking, as I said, we began the journey in 2018, 2019. The real, I suppose the first step in that was embedding advantage thinking in our strategic plan at the time and looking across all our programme offerings and seeing how we could embed advantage thinking across all of those. We also at the time were bringing on a new role in the organisation, which is the Director of Services role. Niamh used to previously hold that role, but she has since abandoned us for a better job elsewhere, apparently. So that was very core to us pushing or building our advantage thinking capability across the organisation, because as Director of Services, a key part of that role is service development, service integration across the company of service development and bringing the advantage thinking to the fore in that. So that was a really important role. We also have an integrated services team within the partnership, which report into the Director of Services. And that's where each of the team leaders and coordinators from across all of the offerings within the partnership come And you know, we did advantage thinking champion training for all of the staff in the integrated services team, so they themselves knew exactly what advantage thinking entailed in relation to their service development or whatever. And we also trained all our reception admin team leaders in that, because, you know, I think often you get a real sense of advantage thinking as soon as you come into an office and you meet the reception team. You very, very quickly know, you know, are you engaging with an organization that's genuinely interested in you as a person and how you progress. And one of the greatest things for me is when I hear people coming to our organization saying, you know, they knew as soon as they stepped in that they were welcome there, and that's really, really important. So we also then brought Colin over, and Niamh referenced Colin earlier, Colin Falconer, the founder of Advantage Thinking, and Colin did a workshop with our board. So our board understood the journey we were about to begin, and had an opportunity to engage with that and see how it aligned already with the work that we were doing, but helped strengthen that work that we were doing. And another really important piece that we did in the initial stage of our journey was we reviewed all of our HR policies and practices to ensure that they themselves were aligned with an advantage thinking mindset. You know, if we believe in investing in the skills, capabilities, and potential of the people that we're working with, we also have to be looking to that internally within our own organization. And I'm mindful, you know, we're not necessarily masters of all our own resources with funders and stuff like that, but as best we can, we try and invest in the ongoing development of our own staff, and particularly from an advantage thinking perspective. But it also, I suppose, in reviewing our HR policies and practices, we also embed advantage thinking into the job roles and job descriptions. So if you see an advertisement for a role in Northside Partnership, you'll see advantage thinking is named up front and centre, and we articulate the kind of behaviours and the competencies that we look for to recruit in people that are aligned with advantage thinking. So we're strengthening that practice all the time in terms of how we build the organisation. And we're currently now developing our next strategic plan for the next 5-year period, or a strategy statement, as I say, as opposed to a strategic plan. And advantage thinking, the next stages of our development in our advantage thinking journey will be are embedded into that plan as we go forward, because you know, advantage thinking isn't a fixed point in time. It's a continuing journey. We're always looking for ways to strengthen our practice, to strengthen our commitment to advantage thinking. So we are also in time looking to transition to a fidelity framework or a quality framework, which the Foyer Federation have been developing in the UK. At the moment, we use the Q mark as our external quality assurance mechanism, but there is a framework coming forward for advantage thinking, which I think is probably more aligned to companies like local development companies than, for example, a Q mark, which might have been more aligned with private sector organisations. And that quality framework keeps that sort of person-centred approach at the heart of all our systems, processes, procedures, and that. And so we're for us, one of the next steps is transitioning to that kind of framework or whatever. So that's a brief summary of the journey that we've been on in Northside Partnership. We do advocate for the approach because we do think it's a way of certainly consolidating, you know, or supporting us in our daily practice with our values. But there is Roisin has put some resources into the chat. I would encourage you to go and look at some of those. But in particular, this booklet, right, where's that gone? Adventures in Advantage Thinking. It's a publication from the Foyer Federation, and it's a guidebook for how an organisation might approach advantage thinking and how it might prepare for taking on advantage thinking and building it into its practice. So I'd certainly encourage you, if you have time, to go and look at that. I do have some copies here. I wouldn't have one for everybody, but if you want to reach out to me, we might share a few of those. Thanks, Niamh.
Thanks, Paul. Really interesting to hear from your personal experience to the application of that in the role, and I suppose the steps that Northside Partnership have taken over a period of time to become an advantage thinking organisation. But like you say, it's not a set and forget. It's a continuous journey, and I suppose that's part of the advantage thinking approach, that you're constantly reflecting and trying to implement the approach. I suppose I would say, in my experience of advantage thinking from Australia and in Northside, as you say, the really innovative piece for me was the HR piece, because it really sets the bedrock for everything else and for the staff, because I think it's something that a lot of organizations would like to do but have yet not taken that step. So I suppose in particular I'd point people to Northside Partnership for that innovative piece. Thanks very much. And I'll introduce Sarah McManus now from Dublin Northwest Partnership, who's the Community Lifelong Learning Coordinator. And she's going to do a presentation and has a lovely input from a student that works with us too. So over to you, Sarah.
Thanks very much, Niamh. Thanks, everybody. As Niamh said, I'm Sarah, and I am working with young people and lifelong learners in the community that are interested in reaching their own educational goals. So what I'm going to do is bring you through kind of a whistle-stop tour of our project that is based in the Finglas community. I myself am from Finglas and have gone in and out all the way through to get to where I am now in terms of education. So I'm really proud to be working in the partnership and to be sharing the young people's and the mature students' story, and I hope I can do them justice today. So I'm just going to share the slides with you to give you a view. And just while I'm making sure that I have the sound on the video, I just want to start by noting this presentation, while I'm presenting it today, is heavily influenced, and there was an awful lot of community consultation within our project with the young people and the lifelong learners as to what should go in it. So when I started this role in 2021, I think it was, maybe, I was asked as part of the interview to have a vision for the project, which I thought was lovely. And the vision that I kind of came up with, or the ideas around what I thought the practice should be, was around these three main ideas of engage, support, succeed. So all about, getting people engaged from the community, having it embedded within the community, supporting people to support themselves, because they really have, like Paul and Niamh has alluded to, people have those innate qualities and abilities. So just supporting people to see them. And then succeed is always the goal that goes on forever. It doesn't end, and success can have many different faces and come out in many different ways. And so just a brief background about who we are and what we do. We are based in the Finglas area at the moment, and we are actually going to expand this project to Cabra later, well, this year, quite soon. As part of the service that we have running, we have like some academic supports, information supports, particularly around teaching as a career. Just a brief background around some of our funding would come part funded from DCU to encourage people into teaching as a career that necessarily may not have thought that could be a dream for them previously. Like Niamh was talking to, it's very much about, if you can see it, you can be it, and that role modelling approach. And then we have Empowering Communities funding as well that we use to run our junior cycle programme in our Finglas South B area. So there we are, a few positive pictures of us all engaging in the projects to give you an overview. So what I thought I'd start to talk about first is the test around how we talk about people without stereotyping them. The word disadvantage for me is just such a bugbearer word. Like Paul said, we need it for policy, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat the fact that people experience challenges in their lives. But within our project, the lived experience in our community project, the word is banned, really. It's not that we don't acknowledge it, but from talking to particularly the young people, it can be really easy to take ownership of those labels and those language, and to embed that into, sometimes it gets into your inner self about who you are. and it really does not have any positive impact at all. So we kind of have a few values that we go off in our own project, which you can see here on the screen. We always talk about never taking ownership of the negative language. And we do have open and honest conversations about stereotyping language, negative language, which happens kind of informally throughout the project. So one of the young people was only saying to me yesterday how the word, even DESH, and I know DESH is supposed to be about delivering equality in schools, but the label of being from a DESH school really makes that person feel lesser than, and that it's harder for them to do anything in comparison to somebody like educational wise that has not gone to a DESH school. And just this quote up here, if you can see it on the right or maybe your left, use your disadvantage to your advantage. One of the young people, the first year we ran the programme, came in and told me her whole story about she wanted to be a primary school teacher, and this was it. And she told me how her dad had always told her to use her disadvantage to her advantage. And it just always stuck with me, and the kind of captions of it, that while we acknowledge it's a word that's used, it's not a word that we internalize, and really we are all about advantage and not disadvantage. So just in terms of the second test, we will understand people by what they can do and what they can aspire to be. Like every young person, lifelong learner that comes through the door have such amazing qualities, talents, and sometimes I feel people can have had a negative experience and it really impacts the confidence, is where we kind of see it, where people may come in with low confidence and think, you know, oh, I shouldn't even be here, I'm not good enough to be here. But when you sit down with somebody for like 5 or 10 minutes, and the qualities that everybody has are so unique, and there really is places for everybody. Like one of the young people came in last year and stood at the door, and it was like there was you know, like I don't know, like a portal. He couldn't come in. And I was like, what's wrong with you? And he was like, I can't come in here. I'm only LCA, which is Leaving Cert Applied, which we may all know the value sometimes that comes across in society. And I was like, no such thing. Like there's no label on you here. And when he came in and we sat down for 10 minutes, he could run the country. Like I said to him, you could actually run the country with his computer skills, his empathy, his understanding. So we're really always trying to see the good in people and not just talk about that, but actually implement it. So really, if somebody has a skill, we always use that skill. Just really quickly to show you here, if you can see there's a picture that says thank you, Adam. So one of our young people is an amazing artist, and we had a student on placement to us last year, and the young people really just really valued this person that was part of our community. So this young person decided to design a portrait for Adam to give to him, and it's something that I just use all the time. And I see, like, you know, this is actually Rose Hill House, the picture on it where we do our classes, and to see that he had a positive view of the house and the cups of tea, because we're all about tea, and he included everybody in the picture. But like that came from his unique talents and abilities. So I just love showing the work of that. And then we're down here in the corner in Dublin City University. So Niamh was talking about how place is really important, and sometimes in the project people will feel like they're not good enough to maybe go to university. I felt that myself. So we're really always about kind of breaking those barriers down, and we attend different campuses and universities, and we sit in with the students that are doing tutorials or lectures, and we take a tour, and we always have a bit of food because that's very important to make people feel welcome. But it's those trips in a safe kind of community where we go together that people will talk about how their whole perception of places like this that is not for them changes. So to move on and talk about kind of the third and fourth test interchangeably, because all of these tests really have an intersectionality that I found hard to break apart trying to develop this presentation. But the tutors are an integral part of the project. Like we all have a shared mindset. I've no doubt at all whatsoever that any of the tutors don't have an advantage thinking approach, and a lot of the time that's just innate within people, that when you interview them or you talk to them, you just know that they have that kind of investment in people, they believe in people. Like challenges we acknowledge they're there, but it's how the tutors approach those challenges and how it never turns into stereotyping or anything like that. And the tutors really are role models. So the tutors would have, some of them would have like similar experiences of having negative school experiences, maybe have gone into teaching at a later stage, work within our community, and just have a real passion for, you know, investing in people. They're very open and honest. And I suppose in one way they are that role model, and they are coaching that growth within the class, and positive risk even within the classroom can be a challenge sometimes. So some people may feel they can't even put their hand up, or they're melting down the wall. And the tutors are really, really good at breaking down that kind of previous experience in a positive way that's not going to bring any trauma to the room. And then aspiration and setting the goals and growing into them. I always say to the young people, and so to the tutors, like, set the goal and grow into it. So sometimes, you know, people, there's an awful lot of talk around points, and I'm not going to get points for this course and that course. And we try and not focus on the points, because yeah, it is a reality. But there are so many ways into different courses and careers, that, like, you know, it's that focusing on, if you set your goal and you've got the support, and you found your own innate qualities, that you can really thrive anywhere you go. So they're big words in our project. The next one that I was talking about, that I thought we talk about, was we believe in people. So really, like, trust, as Paul alluded to, and trust was brought up at an ECP IDLN presentation on Monday as well. Trust is a massive competency and in a massive kind of way of being that we need in the project for it to work as it does. So we always trust anybody coming in the door to know, like, you know, to know what's best for themselves, and that can sometimes be challenging, I get, because there is an awful lot of societal perception around, in particular, young people, and sometimes people that may have been lone parents or dropped out of school at an earlier age. So we're trying to just instill that confidence and believe in people and see them who they are, not what society has labelled them to be. And how we kind of really try and put this into practice is like solution focused approaches to challenges that we come across. So we've had our challenges, don't get me wrong, everybody does, but it's not just myself or the tutors or left on one person of the community, the young people or the lifelong learners, to, I suppose, counteract a challenge. We work as a community and come up with solutions together. And I've never really had to go externally to look for a solution, beyond somebody in the community giving me a recommendation to go to somewhere external that could support us. This on our right hand side is Rose Hill House, where our senior cycle hub is based. And we always have this saying, and it goes through the house. So after 5 o'clock, people would primarily, other people that work in the building would be heading home typically. So our slogan kind of always is, after 5 p.m, this is our house. And really, it's so lovely to see the young people and the lifelong learners coming in, using the kitchen. And even when the staff are in there, they're in engaging with the staff, you know, they're comfortable in that place, which is really supporting their opportunity to grow in confidence. So encouraging people to be active agents in the hub, which again is kind of intertwined into what I just talked about, but everybody is involved in all the experiences that we have. So at the moment, we're redesigning our posters and our kind of hub image. So 3 of the people that are in the hub are actually our artists and residents, and they're chipping away at redesigning posters. We had a consultation group around what the poster should look like, and it was so refreshing. It was so open and honest, like the language that was used, nobody was afraid to say anything that, you know, was quite negative maybe. But we had that design consultation group, and the planning and the redesigning of anything really is embedded within involving any of the people involved in the hub together. So like timetables are consulted through teachers, myself, people engaging in the project, like, and sometimes it's got to the point now where I can even step back and just go, okay, whatever you need to do, I can support you. But that, it really has taken on a life of its own through trust and involving people, that solutions are solved quite quickly, we come up with solutions quite quickly, and we have chefs in residence. So this table here up on the top left hand is our hub table, which has now moved to a different location. But the young people, and we've engaged with the Healthy Food Made Easy programme that's run in the partnerships. So the young people and the mature students would come in of an evening and they make their own food. They've pit of pizzas there. There's always some biscuits and grapes, and I always have recommendations for healthy foods that we have to buy. But it just shows that they're comfortable within the space. And realistically, you know, it's no work on me, because sometimes I think people think all that work that you're doing, I just do the shopping, and they do their own food and they feed me as well. So it's a win-win for the project. And just to finish on this idea that I've talked about a little bit earlier on, about challenging myself and others to promote advantage thinking. And there is a negative perception in society of young people. You can see it in the media. During the pandemic was the perfect example that we talk about a lot, how, you know, I think the youth were kind of the target hit for passing on the COVID, but when they looked into it, it really wasn't the young people. So this is something that goes everywhere with us. It's in our suitcase of positivity. We're constantly consulting with community members and involving colleagues a lot in the work that we do. So in the hub, we would link in with enterprise, SciCap supports, nutrition, Healthy Food Made Easy. And I think working with co-workers and colleagues and different community members coming in and giving inputs into the hub, it really helps to break down those negative perceptions of young people in such a way that it's not just sitting and talking, it's actually that experiential learning piece. And like all the time, people will be so honest and kind of say at the end, oh my goodness, those young people are amazing. And I'm like, yeah, they really, really are. They're trustful, they're respectful, they're energy driven. I get all my positive energy from them. So that's how we would kind of embed challenging negative stereotypes and stuff. And then with intergenerational spaces, so in Finglas South B, where we run our junior cycle program, it's a hive of activity in Helena's Family and Child Resource Centre. So there would be people from all different ages and stages of their life engaging in programs, and it's really lovely to have the young people engaging with people from their community that they may not have before. And you always kind of, the young people may say, you know, oh, they're a lovely group of people and I never would have met them, and vice versa for the community. So we kind of always try to show ourselves. We don't need to show ourselves in our best light. They are the best light they can be. And lastly, something that Niamh has introduced me to and other members of our partnership is the photo voice approach. So we're hoping to implement this where the young people and the mature students will use like a visual technique to give a lens really on what their ideas are of positivity and the community, and you know how they maybe want to be viewed. And then the hope is that we'll create that into a gallery and invite everybody from the community, like schools, parents, community members, staff, to kind of see what the world is like through the lens of young people and mature students when they feel a little bit stereotyped but are very positive. So I just want to finish with a video clip, and thank you so much to Blue. Just to give you background, Blue will probably tell you in the video, but Blue was a mature student who came to the Community Learning Hub in Finglas last year, and she has since moved on. I'll let you listen to her story now, but I just want to thank her in advance for creating this video because it is brilliant. You'll see our video talent in it. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Blue and I attended the Finglas Hub last year for Maths and Irish. The reason I did my Maths and my Irish with the Finglas Hub is because I wanted to pursue a career in primary school teaching, and I needed to do my Maths Leaving Cert again, and I needed to do a Irish oral exam. With the help of the Finglas Hub, I was successful with these requirements, and I'm now doing my Masters in Primary Education. When I think of the Finglas Hub, I can think of so many key factors that are linked to advantage thinking. All the teachers that I encountered were so helpful. They were all so talented and so caring. They really helped me and other students view the exams and the obstacles that we face as more like opportunities. The Finglas Hub was so forward thinking and had such a nice positive energy. The hub always made every student feel at home and at ease and like they belong no matter where they were in life. It was so important that we all felt like we belonged there in that room, learning and to build relationships with one another. It was such a nice support network. I'll never forget how heartwarming it was to walk into class and seeing the teas, coffees, biscuits and even pizzas laid out for the students that were hungry after school before they sat down to learn. It was so nice, and it's amazing for the community, and I can't thank them enough.
So that was Blue's story, and yeah, we're so proud of her, and she's just amazing. She's now teaching and doing her masters in primary school. I don't know if she'd mentioned that. And again, her talents to create that video all by herself really kind of shine through. So I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to her story, and I'll pass back over to whoever is next. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And I suppose when we in Dublin Northwest started to look at advantage thinking through some training with the Foyer Federation and Colin at the time, I was really struck by the hubs and Sarah herself. I think she is advantage thinking in her body, and I just loved the piece around after 5 o'clock, this is our house. I loved hearing it when I was walking out. Not exactly at 5, Sarah, but you know, when I was walking out. I suppose it's really where we want to be as local development companies. This is our house, and we're constantly saying it. You know, our buildings are for the community, and if we could open up all of our services through an advantage thinking approach, making local development companies the community's house, I think it's a lovely image. So on that, I will pass over to Gwen Harris, who's the regional manager of North Dublin MABS. And as I said, Northside Partnership had done some training again with the Foyer Federation and Colin, and I suppose Gwen flew with it. So I'll let Gwen talk about their journey now. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Niamh. Just to make sure, can you see my presentation? No?
Yeah, all good.
Oh,
sorry, Gwen.
okay, great. Yeah, perfect. Thanks. So, I suppose first of all, thanks very much for asking me on today. And we North Dublin MABS have been a product, if you want, of the advantage thinking of Northside Partnership, and invited us to take part in the journey ourselves. And MABS might not seem like a typical advantage thinking organization. And if I talk you through maybe our aims and objectives, it might become a little bit clearer. And so first, sorry now, apologies. Nothing wants to work for me today. So the ethos of MABS, we are a free, independent, confidential, and very importantly, a non-judgmental money advice service here in Ireland. But the non-judgmental is a really important word for us, and it's something that we truly believe in, because the research and our experience would always show that people who come to us and who are working with problem debt, or who have difficulties in managing money, they feel judged, they feel shame, they feel embarrassed about their situation. We often hear people saying, "Oh, I'm the worst case you've ever seen," or "I did this to myself." And so non-judgmental is really, really important for us. And that actually was the start of our advantage thinking kind of cohesiveness to our own ethos, is that we need to bring people on this journey with us, and to move the shame and guilt away. And like Sarah had said before, not just people in disadvantaged communities or communities living with disadvantage, but people who are generally living with problem debt everywhere will disconnect slightly from the community, from social circles and so on, just to isolate themselves and to not experience any more shame and guilt. So involving people in our service is really, really important, and involving them in the process that we work with them. So the main objective of what we do is to work with people on a one-to-one basis. And we generally work with people who are having difficulty managing money, or who are in problem debt currently. However, that is not our only role. It is, I think, what we're known most for is problem debt, but we work a lot in education. We work a lot in prevention side of things as well. But the problem debt and the one-to-one allows us to involve people and to help them to reach their own potential. very often, as I say, people coming feel embarrassed that they're in a financially insecure or working with problem debt themselves. And because of that, they feel that they have nothing to bring to the table to work through a MABS process, where actually everybody has a skill and we try to help them to see that skill. And we work with them with one-to-one with people in a partnership of capacity based. So capacity based might mean that, so if I come today and if I have been sadly bereaved, or if I have had another emotional part in my life or issue in my life, I might have reduced capacity today. When I start working with MABS, even just the shame part of it, I might be reduced in my capacities to be able to deal with my financial situation. However, our aim is to work with people to increase their confidence, to take on more parts of the process as we're working through, and to empower them longer term to be able to live financially independent and securely. Everybody will have different capacities longer term as well, from general capacities, from numeracy. I mean, numbers aren't everybody's thing, numeracy, literacy. So people will have other challenges, and we meet them where they need us to meet them. We work with government funding, so we do need to show our value for money, and very often that is done in a numbers basis. And because of that, sometimes we can lose sight of the empowerment model and how impactful that can be. However, advantage thinking has allowed us to kind of go back to basics in that. We work in a holistic approach. The debt solution is not, well, that might be really what MABS is known for. Achieving the debt solution is not our only goal. Our goal is to increase people's skills long term, to empower them to be independent of the MABS service if they run into difficulties again, or maybe to see a sign earlier rather than a critical debt, and that they might say, I feel I might be in a little bit of trouble next month. I'm going to reach out to somebody now. And that's what we want to build, is confidence and encouragement. We do money management education. Again, this would be around the one-to-one with clients, the empowerment piece, but we also do it within the communities. And we say we're here at the moment at the higher options and the world skills with the future students of the college third level students in the next couple of years. And we're here to help them get on a positive, healthy financial journey. Many of them might move out of home to go to study, and that can put pressure. And we want to have students having a good skill set of budgeting, even just around financial awareness. So it's not just people in debt or people who have credit that would be availing of our services. And apologies now, nothing wants to work for me this morning. So how we achieve our ethos is, as I said, through partnership with our community, not just with the client that we're working with. So partnership with services like Northside Partnership, Dublin Northwest Partnership, any other partnerships around the country nationally as well. But we are not working in the debt space alone. There are other agencies and supports there, and we need to build an integrated system of supports that can be accessed by any target group. When MABS was set up, the target group was low-income families, and particularly people in receipt of state welfare supports. However, we do see that everybody now needs financial supports in money management, but also we see that debt and financial difficulties can happen to anybody at any time for any reason. So our target group has become everybody. So the community development aspect is that the service users that we would work with are all asked to give feedback to help us to shape our service. And this is particularly important for us as we are evolving and there's new debt and new challenges that people are seeing. And we want to make sure that our service and our processes are moving with the times as well. So this would be that test is involving the community. Are we open to feedback? Are we open to change? And absolutely very important for us working with the community is that we have their voice in our strategy. Equal access, as I mentioned, our target groups have changed and shifted to everybody, and it might depend Some people might feel an older person's group might not have a need for MAB service or for education, where actually we do find that older people's groups welcome it, even from a confidence perspective, for them to know that they are doing everything right if in their mind. And policy change, and Sarah has talked about it and Paul has talked about it already, that when policy is implemented, sometimes the lived experience can show that there are unintended consequences of national policies, practices, behaviours of creditors in collection agencies. And what we work with our clients' stories in a very anonymous way to try and highlight some changes that might need to be made to shape and change policy change for the future. And then, as I had mentioned, is money management education. And this is really important because it's not a standard curriculum in school. And I don't think that it's fair to assume that everybody knows how to effectively manage their money. The values of MABs and the advantage thinking journey that we've been on, we really, straight away from the word go, we were brought back to basics. We were reminded of how we're actually an advantage thinking organization already in ways, and that was nice to put a word or a kind of a new caption on our beliefs and on our journey, on our ethos, because we would generally use the word holistic to describe what we do, and holistic, I suppose, can be a little bit ambiguous, whereas advantage thinking, and particularly with the 7 tests, it did allow us to explain our ethos a little bit better, a little bit clearer, I suppose. But the advantage thinking process that we went through, and we started in 2022. So we looked at what we do, how we involve our communities currently. So we do, as I mentioned, we do active client feedback, but we also do community engagement feedback on education sessions, on networking sessions that we might be involved in. We work with other community groups to ensure that there's a partnership approach. Referral fatigue is real, in particularly if somebody comes and they're feeling really low about their situation. However, MABs might not be the best place for all issues that they might be trying to work with in their household. So we do need to work with local partnerships rather than, and do try to warm refer rather than give people a number to another agency. And it's that empowering people to make a next step of another support agency, but not just closing the door on them and referring them on somewhere else, but that we try to work with them while they're trying to go through that holistic process. As I mentioned, that very often debt is not the only issue that people might be experiencing. Debt and sometimes relationship breakdown, debt and bereavement, debt and unemployment. There's lots of issues that might happen to a household, to a person, that might bring them into a problem debt situation. And as I mentioned, the debt solution will not address everything, and we try to help people find other agencies that will help maybe address the reason that the debt happened in the first place. And self-help and empowerment, ideally we should be putting ourselves out of work in a way so that people are empowered long-term to be independent of the MAB service. But this is not always the case, and we do need to keep working with some people longer term. And then, as I mentioned, the capacity based is where we meet people where they need us to meet them today. And that could change tomorrow. They might need more support the next time we see them because something else might have happened, or they might feel need less support because they feel more in control and a bit more confident in themselves. So the lessons that we took away is that, as I said, firstly, it was nice and it was confidence for us that we were really advantage thinking in our processes and our approaches. And it was just reminding ourselves, and we had started this journey, as I mentioned, in 2022, where the last 2 years up to that had been very different for the MAB service. There had been, and we tried to repurpose our service because we couldn't see people face to face as much as we wanted. The debt collection processes in Ireland changed throughout the public health restrictions as well. So we it was a good time for us to take a breath, to look back, to see, well, what can we learn from the public health restrictions in repurposing ourselves going forward? And we brought feedback and involved clients, but we also involved staff in our future as well. And it's very important when we're looking at staff is, and I know North-South Partnership are very, very heavy in the promotion of HR and advantage thinking for staff, because it is really important that we invest not in our people, just our clients or our service users, but also in our staff, maybe backfilling people to attend training so that they don't feel pressured by their client work that they need to attend to, and maybe forego their own training and development because they're favouring the client. So we looked also at the constructive feedback from our service users. Sometimes we find people find it very difficult, or maybe they're not as interested in giving us feedback because they're just relieved to see the end of the MABS process. So we looked at taking feedback from our clients while we were working with them, and then at the end as well. Again, feedback sometimes is very difficult for people to do, so we did it face to face as well as any digital option that people would like, or paper option if they'd like to be anonymous. We're looking at a staff satisfaction survey, and that's always that's going to be quite telling around engagement, from staff engagement and staff motivation. But then the change in culture is needed to embrace not just client feedback, but staff satisfaction, staff feedback, because this is where sometimes as an organization and as an employer, critique from staff could be a slightly unnerving. However, it is important to involve everybody and to be forward thinking in the same way that we are when our clients give us feedback on suggestions for improvement. And then we finally ensure that the communication of advantage thinking reaches everybody in the organization. And this was very important, as I mentioned, with the quantitative piece, because we feel a pressure to have numbers and to have more numbers than last year to evidence our work and our worth, where the advantage thinking involving people, capacity-based, reminding ourselves that actually debt solution and the throughput of numbers is not going to have the most impact, where if we're empowering people and educating them as much as we can, that will have more impact in the long term. So I just want to stop sharing there for 1 second. And Paul and Sarah and Niamh in particular, like when I'm when sitting and listening in the beginning, listening to your own presentations, I could hear a lot of our experience in that as well. And particularly how people who are living with financial disadvantage are feeling, and that shame, I'm not going to say worthlessness because that's not a fair representation, but people do feel less worthy of services, of having treats in their life or anything like that, because they feel that they've done something to bring them to this place. And it is, there's an assumption, I think, as well, a public assumption about who uses a MAB service. And actually 50% of the MABs clients in 2023 were working, but there's an assumption that it's a higher percentage of people are not working. So hopefully we'll break more barriers by really embracing the communication of advantage thinking to change the perception about who needs the MAB service, and especially that whole prevention piece. So thanks very much for having me.
Thanks, Gwen. I think that was a really powerful presentation. And I suppose the phrase that keep coming back to me is where you said we're back to basics. And I think that piece, that kind of drive to measure more and, have our stats front and center, and I suppose the the related challenge of making sure that our culture is right, but also ensuring that there's an empowerment model, and that people are coached to make sustainable change. And how do we measure that? I think that's a really interesting kind of dilemma that we're all faced with in this sector. So thanks very much for your contribution, Gwen. I'm conscious of time. As usual, we got overexcited and overextended ourselves around advantage thinking. That's not unusual. So I'm just going to say that we'll stay on at what I understand if people had only given themselves the hour. And I would love to welcome Joel Lewis, who's the CEO of the Foyer Federation. So Joel will give you a little bit of background to the Foyer Federation, but it's, I suppose, really important to say that it's the home of advantage thinking. It's where advantage thinking was born, and they've really had I suppose, a nice phrase around generosity of spirit of sharing the advantage thinking concept globally, really. And so it's great to have you, Joel, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much. Assuming everyone can hear me okay and can see the presentation that I've got going. So lovely to be with you, and thanks for inviting me. I'm Joel, I'm the Chief Exec at Foyer Fed. I've been in position for about 4 years as Chief Exec, 7 years in the organisation, and quite a long time in the Foyer network. Let's not go into the specifics. I'm a very last minute change, replacing my colleague Kate, who had originally stepped in to cover me as I was recovering from an operation on my vocal cord. But we've now reversed this cover as my voice is nearly back to normal. And sadly, Kate wasn't able to join in a bit of a last minute change. So bear with me. I'm using Kate's presentation and Kate's notes. So let's see how that goes. First of all, thanks to the other people that have spoken. I came in, not at the very start, but I caught quite a lot of what was said, and brilliant to hear about how advantage thinking has been applied in so many different places, and so inspiring to have these kind of get-togethers where we really focus on how to think and do advantage thinking in different contexts. So some of you might know us as the Foyer Federation, but many will not. So for those who do, just bear with me while I cover a little bit about us, and then we'll talk a bit more about how we work with advantage thinking. Click twice, there we go. The Foyer Federation has been around for 32 years now, and primarily we're a youth development organisation that works with supported housing services that focus on young people who've experienced homelessness, and they're called Foyers. The model originally came from France, and I'm sure you can look a bit more into the history if you're interested in that. Each year, around 3,000 people are impacted by Foyers in our network. Each of these young people has experience of homelessness, and around 28% of these young people have experienced care. 51% have been diagnosed with mental health condition, though of course the real number is likely to be much higher. That might sound like quite a disadvantaged way to begin, but I hope you'll agree that the context to which we're working is really important when we're considering advantage thinking. And I think you'll see advantage thinking running throughout our mission and vision, which you can see on screen. And that's really to support these Foyer services to grow and develop so they can have the biggest impact on the lives of the young people who live in Foyers. We call this our onion diagram. And have I missed a slide? I thought there was another slide there. Anyway, I was just going to say that we've got around 56 Foyer projects in our membership. It spans England, Scotland, and we've also got a service in Cork. And happy to have some more Irish services if anyone is delivering a Foyer type service and would like to be connected to a wider network. Yeah, we call this our onion diagram, and it kind of shows how we work together. So as you can see, young people are in the middle, and that's our focus group, and they're at the heart of everything we do. And so obviously a lot of our impact is focused towards young people, but they also are involved in shaping how we work, and their experiences and ideas really influence our future facing strategies. Wrapped around them are the foyers, places where young people can live, learn and work. And then there's us kind of as the infrastructure body, helping them to grow, to try and create new resources and add services and programs to what they already do. And then around that is the kind of main thing that we're talking about today, which is that advantage thinking focus on the strengths and talents of the young people that we serve. And so what does it look like in practice? Well, we aim to create opportunities for young people to grow their skills, build their confidence, and make new connections. We also run grant-making programs to invest directly in young people's skills and talents and move them on positively from foyers. We build staff skills through delivery of training workshops, programs that focus on key areas such as mental health, youth leadership, and power, and through our quality development and accreditation program that helps services to get better and embed advantage thinking at that local level. We're currently also building an advantage thinking learning community, which will be a digital space that focuses, fosters confidence, community, and collaboration around the learning that happens within foyers. And then we create and share advantage thinking resources and run communities of practice within and beyond our network, listening to what our network and young people are experiencing and trying to deliver what they need. Here's a bit of the impact of what happens within foyers. This comes through our accredited foyers that have advantage thinking at the heart of what they do. And it just draws out the progression they've made during their stay. These are the 7 areas that we look at through our theory of change, because young people told us they were the most important things when we spoke to them in a detailed piece of research with the University of Cumbria. As you can see, the numbers progressing in each of these areas each year shows that how advantage thinking can really make a difference in the lives of young people. Advantage thinking has its origins in the Foyer Federation, as has been mentioned, and it was developed around 12 years ago as a way of kind of naming what was already going on, and some of you have referred to that yourselves. And Colin Falconer, the Director of Innovation at the Foyer Fed at the time, worked with the rest of the Foyer Fed team and the Foyers to look at how do we embed strengths-based and asset-based working into the context that they're working in day after day. And since then, it's grown and grown within the UK, within Ireland, away in Australia, and most recently in Hong Kong. We just had some visitors from Hong Kong come who are building the first Asian foyer. And we're also trying to break the banks of the youth supported housing sector around advantage thinking, where there's still a lot of deficit-based working. This slide shows our Home for Advantage Thinking, which was the name of our 2021 strategy. And I want to kind of cast your mind back to that. And the ambition was, I guess, to kind of build that home. And in the home, we identified 4 areas: a space for youth leadership and activism. I mean, you could put that as lived experience if you're not working with young people, like involving the people that you're working with in their services. A place to develop the capacity and quality and impact of services in an advantage thinking way. Room to grow a community of like-minded advantage thinkers and doers. And finally, a place to communicate and promote a vision for advantage thinking. We've made pretty decent progress. We're not a huge organization, but over the last 3 years, I'm pleased, I guess, that we can share with you some of the fruits of our labor, in particular around the area of growing a community of like-minded advantage thinkers and communicating that vision. And just the fact that we're having this webinar is some evidence of that, which is really encouraging. And so our newest kind of offer to the movement is a bit of a digital home for advantage thinking. And it might not have a roof or a garden yet, but we hope it can open lots of doors for the advantage thinking movement and be a way to seed and grow the approach wherever it's needed. So the Advantage Thinking website, you can see the opening screen here. Frequently, we speak to people about what Advantage Thinking means to them. And a lot of people describe it as like a powerful feeling they have about how people should be understood and treated, or as something that we deeply know as humans, but haven't had the words for until that moment. I think Gwyn kind of alluded to that when she was talking about a holistic way of working, and then you get something that helps you delve a bit deeper into what that looks like. And so we created the website really to help people to find Advantage thinking quicker, sooner, and help them to put those feelings into words, which then enables us to grow. It's designed to be accessible to everyone within and beyond youth-supported housing, from experienced Advantage thinkers to people just dipping a toe in for the first time. It's a space that connects people to tools to help them along their Advantage thinking journey, whoever they work with and wherever they are. It's a space that tells Advantage thinkers everywhere that they're part of a thriving community. And we hope something that you can point other people to and say, look, this is what I'm talking about. And we spent quite a bit of time thinking about how to communicate that. I'd love for you to explore the site in more detail, including some of the animations you can see on screen that try and bring the 7 tests to life in really simple ways without a lot of words. You can get stuck in to the activities available to try as well, including personal reflections and conversations as a group. There is a Are You an Advantage Thinker quiz that gives you a bit of a starting point for those that aren't really aware of the concept, and some free downloadable resources as well that can hopefully help you support that culture and practice development. There are clear and straightforward descriptions of the key ideas and taking Advantage thinking out of the realm of the theoretical into more of a real, practical, tangible, the tangible stuff. The intention is the advantagethinking.com, which is where you can find it, or advantagethinking.co.uk. They both take you to the same place. Can help you when demonstrating the benefits of Advantage thinking to decision makers, or explaining your way of working to your partners that maybe still take a bit more of a deficit-based approach. And there's also some offer from us around how we can maybe help going forward, maybe some of our training. I know some of you have had that already, but things like that. So looking forward, we've made some steps into sharing Advantage thinking beyond the youth-supported housing sector in the UK, including things like delivering Advantage thinking training to MenCap, who's the charity for people with a learning disability. And we're really excited to explore further areas where Advantage thinking could make a huge difference. And I think we need to do that as a community. That's not going to be just our role. We've got nowhere near the reach to do that. I mean, one of the areas, just as an example, where we think it can make a huge difference is in NHS and other caregiving organisations, where we'd love to see Advantage thinking explored and applied so that people are better listened to, engaged in the process of their own care, and are involved in it meaningfully. And you just hear time and time again stories of that not being the case. We believe it could make a significant and long-lasting impact in the education system, with young people being understood holistically for their strengths, as well as those academic areas they may need development in, plus having the scope to explore these strengths rather than fit within a narrow definition of success. Students having more involvement in the method and type of learning they do, and taking a person-centered approach to communication and behaviour management. We want our Advantage thinking community to reach every person and place it's needed. And the only way we can do that is by doing it together. So we're keen to hear your views on how we can best bring together and nurture that online community. We're looking at creating a community section to the website, and we want it to be something that's used and doesn't just sit there dormant. So I want to kind of finish by encouraging you to do 3 things. Sign up to the Advantage thinking mailing list, and we can send that out through the list afterwards, Neve, I think, unless Kate's already given you that. Follow our Advantage thinking Instagram account if you're not already, and share the website with someone you would like to extend advantage thinking to. Thanks so much for giving me your time today. And yeah, feel free to reach out and connect. I'm always up for a chat, especially if it's around advantage thinking.
Thanks, Joel. I suppose lots of things to take away from that conversation, but I suppose that what I've always found with the Foyer Federation is the collaboration and that sharing of resources, because as you say, it does take a community. And I think, you know, what you said there, taking it out of the realm of the theoretical and into the tangible and practical, that's where a lot of us have talked about today. That's the benefit of advantage thinking, is that it becomes a really practical tool and lens to apply to the work. So thanks very much, and especially as you've been unwell, so really appreciate you coming today. We still have many participants on, so people could stay on, I see. So we will open it up to the question and answer briefly, if there's any questions, Sarah or Roisin, that you want to bring to our attention. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, just to let you know, because the chat is, and we're having problems with the chat and on access for the attendees, I put the resources just into our Q&A section if people want there, and I believe Sarah's making a screen for the end as well. And there's a couple of just comments and questions. And so the first one there is from John O'Donnell. So solution-based brief therapy was a similar capabilities-based approach popular over 10 years ago. Various stakeholders participated in the training, thus laying down a solid common approach across the youth work to a school sector. So that's John's comment there. I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to put to that.
Yeah, I did actually read that, and I suppose many of us might have some feedback on that, but I agree. There's been, and I think I said it at the outset, there's lots of theories, there's lots of ways of working that are absolutely aligned to advantage thinking, and I suppose it's, you know, always good to hear more about those approaches. And I suppose I see advantage thinking sometimes as an extension of that, and a way to apply it at many levels: practice, policy, to your organization. You know, I see it as a multi-level way of cutting through a lot of the work we do. But it'd be really interesting to hear from John about more about that. Yeah.
And the second question we have there is, well, it's for Sarah, and it's been answered. It's just about young people engaging in the project and how many people there were. So Sarah said that typically there's around 100 or 121 people sign up for a project in each academic year. So that's possibly because there's a problem with the chat. There's not any more questions there. But I suppose I was just going to say, just if takeaway from this, what would you recommend maybe as the first step someone should take if they wanted to engage with advantage thinking?
Yeah. Does anybody else want to, maybe Joel or Paul, who's on the call?
I didn't actually fully catch that, Niamh, to be honest. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, what would be the first step for an organization to engage with advantage thinking? What would you advise?
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, there is, not to plug the website yet again, but there is literally a section of the website that kind of leads you through that. But my advice would be to get people together in the organization and do a bit of a mini audit around advantage thinking. And audit probably is too big a word. Have a discussion as a team about where your strengths lie, where there may be areas of deficit and things like that. When I was working at frontline service in the YMCA, what we did was we got everyone together and we got some little flashcards, and we got everyone to go around, and we looked at the building itself to start with, because it's often easy to start with things that we can see. And we made comments on the things that we thought were asset-based, the things that we thought were a bit deficit-based, and the things where there was a gap, for example. So it may have been that there was a sign-up that was quite negative or deficit-based, and we would spot that as a thing. There was other things we thought, this is really, really good and makes a huge difference. And then there was other things like, why have we not got something here? Like, for example, in the kitchens, why have we not got something encouraging people to cook? So that's just a really practical example, but you could do that. That was more around the building itself and maybe the test one talk, but you could do that in each of the 7 tests and have a little discussion around those things, or make it practical, make it fun. I think that's the best way to start.
Joe? Just conscious of time, and before we finish up, unless anyone else wants to say anything, I really want to thank all the panelists for their time, but particularly Northside Partnership, who really have done the hard yards in terms of the comms around this event, and to Roisin from Dublin Northwest, who supported that. But a huge thanks, and I suppose we're very happy to contribute to the Irish Local Development Network's Local Development Week. And yeah, thanks to everyone for coming and listening in, and there will be a recording available to those who registered. So we'll just close the session with those words. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.